The lottery ticket looked ordinary until my son turned it over and asked me why the winning drawing had not happened yet. I was standing at my mother's kitchen counter, wrapping chipped china in newspaper, when Noah walked in carrying her old Bible. Dust clung to the black leather cover and one of the brass corners had pulled loose. "Mom," he said, "Grandma left something in here." He held up a faded lottery ticket. My mother had bought one ticket every Friday for almost 30 years. She called it her $2 permission to imagine. She never expected to win. She simply enjoyed drinking coffee on Saturday mornings while she checked the numbers. But this ticket was different. The printed numbers were 4, 11, 19, 26, 38, and 52. Beneath them was a drawing date of October 17, 2029. It was October 2026. I checked it twice because I work in medical billing, and numbers are the language in which mistakes confess. Dates, codes, balances, authorization numbers. Most people see clutter. I see patterns. The ticket looked real. The paper had the right weight. The state lottery logo was correct. Even the barcode looked authentic. But no lottery terminal sells tickets for drawings 3 years in the future. Then I noticed a sentence written in my mother's small blue handwriting along the white edge. "When the numbers come due, do not let Malcolm explain them." I sat there for a long time. Malcolm Voss had been my mother's estate attorney for 12 years. He had handled her will, her house, her retirement accounts, and the sale of my father's machine shop after he died. He had also been the last person to visit her before she suffered the stroke that killed her. 3 questions came to me at once. Why had my mother hidden an impossible lottery ticket inside her Bible? Why had she warned me about the lawyer she trusted most? And how could she have known that those numbers would come due on a date 3 years away? I did not know it yet, but the ticket was not a promise of future luck. It was a receipt for something that had already been stolen. Good day, dear listeners. It's Nora again. I'm glad you're here with me. Please subscribe to my channel and like this video. And also let me know in the comments which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. My name is Elaine Mercer. I was 46 years old when my mother died, and I lived with my 15-year-old son in a small brick duplex outside Cleveland. I worked as a billing compliance specialist for a regional hospital network. My job was to review claims that had been rejected, duplicated, miscoded, or quietly redirected. Most errors were innocent. A wrong digit, an outdated insurance number, a procedure entered under the wrong physician. But sometimes an error was not an error. Sometimes a person built a lie out of ordinary paperwork because they believed no one patient enough would ever place the pages side by side. My divorce had taught me something similar. My former husband had not been violent or dramatic. He had simply become absent in careful stages, first emotionally, then financially, and finally physically. By the time he left, he had already moved half our savings into an account I did not know existed. That experience did not make me suspicious of everyone. It made me respectful of records. My mother, Ruth, had lived alone in the same pale yellow house for 41 years. It was a modest place with a narrow porch, a pear tree in the backyard, and a basement that always smelled faintly of laundry soap and concrete. She had been a public school librarian before retirement. She loved labels, index cards, sharpened pencils, and the quiet dignity of putting things where they belonged. After my father died, Malcolm Voss helped her settle his business affairs. He was calm, silver-haired, and unfailingly polite. He wore charcoal suits and spoke in the soft, measured tone of a man accustomed to being believed. My older brother, Daniel, admired him. Daniel had always been drawn to polished people. He sold commercial real estate, drove cars he replaced before the tires wore down, and talked about money as though it were proof of character. I loved my brother, but loving someone does not prevent you from seeing them clearly. In the final year of my mother's life, Daniel became unusually involved in her finances. He said he was helping because I was busy raising Noah and working full-time. He arranged meetings with Malcolm. He helped Mother change banks. He encouraged her to sign documents to simplify probate. Whenever I asked what documents, he smiled. "Elaine, not everything is an investigation." That sentence stayed with me. At work, people often said something similar when I asked why a payment had moved, why a date had changed, or why a signature did not match. Usually, the people who disliked questions were the ones who already knew the answers. Mother's health had declined slowly. She remained mentally sharp, but arthritis made writing difficult, and a mild tremor had appeared in her right hand. 3 months before her death, she called me late at night. "Do you still keep your father's red toolbox?" she asked. "Yes." "And the small keys inside?" "I think so." There was a pause. "If anyone asks, you threw them away." I remember standing in my kitchen, holding the phone against my ear while the refrigerator hummed me. Who would ask? But she changed the subject. 2 weeks later, Malcolm called and suggested that Mother might benefit from a formal cognitive evaluation. He said it was routine estate planning. Mother was furious. "I forget where I put my glasses," she told me. "That does not mean I have forgotten who is trying to take my house." When I asked whom she meant, she looked toward the hallway, as though someone might be listening. Then Daniel arrived, carrying groceries and speaking too brightly, and the conversation ended. After Mother died, the funeral passed in a blur of casseroles, flowers, paperwork, and people telling me she was in a better place. Malcolm met Daniel and me in his office 4 days later. The room had dark wood shelves, framed law degrees, and a large window overlooking the river. On his desk sat 3 perfectly aligned folders. He explained that Mother's estate was simple. The house had been transferred into a family trust. Her savings were smaller than expected because of long-term care planning and market losses. After expenses, Daniel and I would each receive approximately $28,000. I was surprised. Mother had lived carefully. My father's shop had sold for nearly $900,000. There had been retirement accounts, municipal bonds, and the house, which was fully paid for. "Where did the rest go?" I asked. Malcolm folded his hands. "Your mother made several private financial decisions." "What kind of decisions?" "Gifts, charitable contributions, investment restructuring." Daniel shifted in his chair. "Mom told me she wanted to enjoy her money. Mother had clipped coupons until the week she died." I looked at Malcolm. "May I see the statements?" "Of course. Once the administrative review is complete." "When will that be?" "Soon." Soon is not a date. In billing, vague language usually means someone does not want a deadline that can later be measured. I requested copies in writing that evening. 3 days later, I received a slim envelope containing a summary sheet, not the underlying records. The summary showed several transfers labeled estate equalization, asset protection adjustment, and private family accommodation. Those phrases sounded official, but they explained nothing. I emailed Malcolm again. He replied that some documents were privileged and others involved confidential third parties. That was the first warning sign. The second came from the bank. Mother's checking account had been closed 2 days before she died, not after, before. The closure form claimed she had appeared in person at the Lakeview branch at 2:40 in the afternoon. At 2:40 that day, I had been sitting beside her hospital bed while a neurologist explained that she could no longer swallow safely. I knew because I had signed the treatment notes at 2:37. When I called the bank, the representative became cautious. "You are not currently listed as an authorized party. I am the executor named in her will. Our file reflects a different fiduciary arrangement." "What arrangement?" "I'm unable to discuss that by phone." Then she asked me to contact Malcolm Voss. That was when the first cold thread of fear moved through me. A week later, Noah found the ticket in the Bible. Mother had marked the book of Numbers with a strip of yellow fabric. The ticket was tucked between chapters 26 and 27. I looked at the 6 numbers again: 4, 11, 19, 26, 38, 52. They did not resemble birthdays. Mother was born in July, my father in February. Daniel and I were born 4 years apart, not 7. Noah's birthday was the 9th. Then I remembered the red toolbox. It sat on a shelf in my garage beneath old paint cans. Inside were my father's socket wrenches, a broken tape measure, and a small metal tobacco tin containing 6 keys. One was stamped 4111. Another had the number 19 scratched into the brass. I felt my heartbeat change. The next morning, I called in sick. I spread everything across my kitchen table: the ticket, the keys, Mother's estate summary, the bank closure letter, and a legal pad. Numbers are easier to understand when they are given space. 4 and 11 formed 411. 19 matched the brass key. 26 and 38 could be dates, pages, boxes, or accounts. 52 might mean weeks. I searched the county property database first. Mother's house had been transferred 18 months earlier to something called the RKM Preservation Trust. The trustee was not Mother. It was Voss Fiduciary Services, a private company registered at Malcolm's office address. The transfer document carried Mother's signature, but the signature leaned hard to the right and ended in a sharp upward stroke. Mother's real signature had flattened over the years because of her tremor. I printed both examples and placed them side by side. Then I checked the document number. It ended in 2638. I looked at the ticket again. The truth has a weight of its own. You can feel it before you are strong enough to lift it. I called a probate attorney named Lena Ortiz, whose name I had found through the County Bar Association. Her office was above a bakery in Parma, and it smelled faintly of cinnamon and printer toner. Lena was in her early 50s, with dark-framed glasses and the direct manner of someone who did not use 10 words where 3 would do. She examined the ticket without smiling. "Lottery tickets cannot be issued for a drawing 3 years out," she said. "I know. Have you scanned the barcode?" No. She used an official lottery application on her phone. The screen displayed an error. Invalid product code. She held the ticket beneath a desk lamp. "This may be a genuine ticket that was chemically washed and reprinted. Why would my mother do that? She may not have, but the handwritten message is probably hers." "Yes." Lena studied the numbers. "You think they are a key." "I think Mother expected me to think they were." Lena leaned back. "Then do not contact Voss. Do not contact your brother. Preserve the ticket in a plastic sleeve. Photograph everything. Forward me every email. And from this moment on, assume that any conversation may later become evidence. Fear is strange. It does not always make you small. Sometimes it makes the room sharper." I noticed the ticking clock, the condensation on my water glass, the tiny red light on Lena's printer. I was not brave. I was careful. That afternoon, Lena filed a petition demanding a full trust accounting and an emergency order preventing the sale of Mother's house. By sunset, Malcolm called me. His voice was warm. "Elaine, I understand you've retained counsel. I have. I wish you had spoken to me first. Legal proceedings can consume estates very quickly. My attorney will communicate with you. There may be sensitive family matters your mother hoped to keep private. Then proper documentation should protect her wishes." He paused. "You sound upset. I'm collecting information. Your brother is concerned this may be related to grief." There it was, not a threat, not exactly, a diagnosis. He was placing a frame around me. Emotional daughter, confused by loss, suspicious without cause. At the hospital, I had seen physicians dismiss accurate complaints because a chart contained the word anxious. Once a label enters a record, facts begin bending around it. "I appreciate the concern," I said. "Please contact Ms. Ortiz." Before he hung up, Malcolm said quietly, "Your mother trusted me for many years." I looked at the impossible ticket on my table. "Yes," I said. "That is what worries me." The emergency order was granted 2 days later. That same evening, someone tried to enter Mother's house. The porch camera showed a man in a gray cap using a key at the side door. When the new deadbolt stopped him, he walked away without looking at the camera. Daniel said it was probably a maintenance worker. Mother had no maintenance worker. Lena hired a forensic document examiner and a financial investigator named Owen Beck. Owen had spent 20 years tracing embezzlement for insurance companies. He spoke slowly and carried a battered notebook, held together with black tape. Within a week, he found that RKM Preservation Trust was only one of 7 entities connected to Voss Fiduciary Services. Money had moved from Mother's investment account into the trust, then into a company called North Coast Community Lending. North Coast had issued a private loan to a real estate partnership. The managing partner was my brother Daniel. The amount was $411,000. I stared at the report until the numbers blurred. Daniel had received the money 18 months earlier, shortly after one of his commercial projects failed. The loan had no normal repayment schedule. Interest was deferred until October 17, 2029. The date printed on the ticket, the winning date. My mother had not hidden a lottery ticket. She had hidden the maturity date of a secret loan. but that still did not explain the other numbers. 19 was the key. Lena and I visited 3 banks before we found the right one. At Lakeview Savings, a records clerk confirmed that key number 19 belonged to a safe deposit box rented jointly by Ruth Mercer and Voss Fiduciary Services. Malcolm had filed paperwork claiming the box should be sealed after Mother's death. Lena obtained a court order to open it. Inside were no jewels, no cash, and no dramatic stacks of bonds. There was one brown accordion folder, a flash drive, and a handwritten letter addressed to me. My hands shook as I opened it. Elaine, if you are reading this, I was unable to correct what I allowed to happen. Daniel came to me frightened. His project had failed, and he said people would lose their jobs. Malcolm proposed a temporary loan secured by the house and investments. He told me both children would ultimately be protected. Later, I learned the documents did not say what he told me they said. When I objected, Malcolm said Daniel could face fraud allegations and prison. Daniel begged me not to destroy his life. I agreed to wait while they repaired it. They did not repair it. They changed more papers. I have copied what I could. Do not hate your brother until you know which choices were his, but do not let love make you blind. I pressed the letter against the table and closed my eyes. Betrayal is rarely one clean wound. It is a series of smaller cuts delivered by people who know where you are soft. The flash drive contained scanned documents, recorded phone calls, and photographs Mother had taken with an old tablet. In one recording, Malcolm explained that he would stabilize the estate by moving the house into a protective trust. Mother asked whether I would still inherit half. Economically, yes, he replied. Not legally, economically. A careful word designed to sound comforting while promising nothing. In another recording, Daniel was crying. I just need time, Mom. Malcolm says the market will turn. Mother answered, Elaine must be told. Daniel said, not yet. Those 2 words hurt more than anything Malcolm had said. Daniel had not designed the scheme, but he had accepted silence as the price of rescue. The forensic examiner concluded that Mother's signatures on 3 key documents had been traced from an older power of attorney form. The notary was an employee of Malcolm's firm. The supposed witnesses were connected to North Coast Community Lending. Then Owen found the most important evidence. Malcolm had billed Mother's trust for legal services on the exact dates the forged documents were created. His internal invoice descriptions included phrases such as revised execution version and alternate signature packet. He had charged her for preparing the instruments used to take control of her property. That was the first mistake he could not explain away. The pressure began immediately. Daniel called me 6 times in one day. When I finally answered, his voice sounded exhausted. Elaine, you don't understand what you're doing. I understand $411,000 went from Mom's assets into your partnership. It was a loan. Did she have independent counsel? Malcolm was her counsel. Malcolm represented the lender, the trustee, and the company that arranged the loan. He said it was legal. Did you tell me? Silence. Then he said I was going to. When? I don't know. Before or after the house was sold, he began to cry. A year earlier, I might have rushed to comfort him. That day, I sat at my kitchen table and listened. Emotional control does not mean you feel nothing. It means your feelings do not get to destroy the evidence. I love you, I told him. But I will not help you hide this, he whispered. You're going to ruin me. No, Daniel. I am refusing to be ruined with you. 3 days later, Malcolm came to my house. He stood beneath the porch light holding no briefcase and wearing no overcoat. Although the evening was cold, the informality was deliberate. He wanted the visit to look personal, almost fatherly. I did not invite him inside. You should leave, I said. I hoped we could speak without attorneys. We cannot. He glanced toward the front window, where Noah's shadow moved behind the curtain. This process may expose Daniel to serious consequences. That depends on what he did. It may also reduce the estate through litigation. That depends on what you did. His expression barely changed. Your mother made imperfect choices for compassionate reasons. Then why were her signatures forged? For the first time, his eyes hardened. You are relying on preliminary opinions. I am relying on documents. He lowered his voice. There is a path that protects everyone. Your brother repays a portion of the loan. The trust distributes the house to you. We avoid public accusations that could damage reputations. Whose reputation? He gave me a tired smile. Elaine, reasonable people settle. Reasonable people also keep copies. I watched the meaning reach him. He did not know exactly what Mother had preserved. That uncertainty frightened him more than accusation. He stepped closer. You should consider what prolonged conflict does to families. My mother considered it. She left me instructions. The porch went still. Behind him, a car moved slowly down the street. What instructions? He asked. I opened the door. My attorney will contact you. The civil complaint named Malcolm, Voss Fiduciary Services, North Coast Community Lending, the notary, and Daniel's partnership. Lena also referred the evidence to the county prosecutor and the state disciplinary board. During discovery, Malcolm produced thousands of pages. That is a common tactic. Hide the important page inside a paper avalanche and hope exhaustion succeeds where dishonesty failed. But billing work had trained me for volume. I spent evenings at Lena's conference table building a timeline. Every transfer, every signature, every phone call, every version of every trust document. A claim fails when one code contradicts another. So does a fraud. Malcolm's deposition lasted 2 days. He said Mother had understood the trust. Lena showed him the recording in which Mother asked whether the house still belonged to her. He said the loan had been independently reviewed. Lena produced an email showing the independent reviewer had requested payment from Malcolm's office. He said the alternate signature packet was prepared only because Mother's tremor made signing difficult. Lena placed the traced signatures beside the hospital note, documenting that Mother was sedated on the date of execution. Then came the ticket. Lena slid it across the table in a clear evidence sleeve. Malcolm looked at it for less than a second, but Owen noticed his left hand tighten. Have you seen this before? Lena asked. No. Do the numbers mean anything to you? No. She displayed his internal ledger. Matter 401. Box 19. Instrument 2T638. Deferred maturity 52 months. Every number on the ticket corresponded to an element of the transaction. Mother had built an index, not because she expected me to solve everything alone, but because she knew Malcolm might destroy the records if she wrote the accusation plainly. The date 3 years away was the loan maturity date, the day Daniel's company would either repay the trust or surrender its interest in a property development expected to become extremely valuable. Malcolm had structured the agreement so that if Daniel defaulted, the development interest would pass not to Mother's estate, but North Coast Community Lending, a company controlled through nominees connected to Malcolm. He had designed both outcomes. If Daniel repaid, Malcolm collected fees and silence. If Daniel failed, Malcolm acquired the development. Either way, my mother's estate carried the risk. At the temporary injunction hearing, Malcolm's attorneys argued that Mother had knowingly entered a sophisticated estate plan. Lena did not call me first. She called Daniel. He walked into court looking older than his 49 years. His suit hung loosely, and he kept his eyes on the floor. Under oath, he admitted that Malcolm had told him not to disclose the loan to me. He admitted signing backdated partnership resolutions. He admitted that Mother had repeatedly asked for the documents to be reversed. Then Lena asked the question I had feared. Did your mother authorize Mr. Voss to use a traced signature? Daniel covered his mouth. No, the courtroom was silent. Did you know the signature was not hers? He looked at me. Yes, that answer broke something between us. But it also ended the lie. The judge froze the trust assets, removed Voss Fiduciary Services as trustee, and appointed an independent administrator. The matter was referred for criminal review. 6 months later, Malcolm agreed to a civil settlement before trial. His firm's insurer restored the diverted funds, paid legal costs, and surrendered all claims connected to Mother's property. The state suspended his law license while criminal charges proceeded. The notary pleaded guilty to falsifying acknowledgments and cooperated with prosecutors. Malcolm eventually entered a plea to financial exploitation, forgery-related charges, and obstruction. He did not receive the dramatic punishment people imagine in stories. There was no shouting judge or public collapse. There was a sentence, restitution, professional disgrace, and the quiet closing of an office that had once made frightened families feel safe. Daniel avoided prison because he cooperated early, surrendered his interest in the development, and accepted responsibility for false business records. He lost his company. He also lost my trust. Those were not the same thing, but both mattered. Mother's house came back into the estate. The recovered accounts were divided according to her original will. My share was enough to change my life, but not in the way strangers expected. I did not buy a mansion. I paid off my duplex, replaced the furnace, and created a college fund for Noah. I reduced my hours at the hospital and began taking evening courses in healthcare fraud examination. The work suited me. I understood how ordinary people could be intimidated by paperwork, titles, and calm voices. I wanted to help them see that official language is not the same as truth. I kept Mother's house for 1 year. During that time, Noah and I repaired the porch, cleared the basement, and brought the pear tree back from disease. In spring, it produced 6 small white blossoms. Eventually, I sold the house to a young couple with 2 children. I kept Mother's library table and the brass lamp that had stood beside her reading chair. Part of the recovered money funded a legal aid program for older adults facing financial exploitation. I asked that Mother's name not appear on a building or plaque. She had never liked attention. Daniel and I did not reconcile quickly. For almost a year, we spoke only through email. Then one Sunday, he came to my door carrying the red toolbox. He had cleaned every tool and replaced the broken tape measure. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said. I looked at him for a long time. "Good," I replied. "Because forgiveness is not the same as pretending." He nodded. That was the beginning. Not a reunion, not a perfect repair, a beginning. Sometimes healing is not a restored house. Sometimes it is learning which rooms are safe to enter again. The impossible lottery ticket now rests inside a frame in my office. From a distance, it looks like a symbol of luck. It is not. It reminds me that people often wait for justice, the way they wait for winning numbers, hoping some outside force will suddenly change everything. But justice did not arrive by chance. It came through my mother's courage in preserving evidence, Lena's knowledge, Owen's patience, Daniel's eventual honesty, and my decision to keep asking questions when powerful people told me to stop. Money was never the real prize. The real prize was waking in the morning without fear of another hidden document. It was knowing my son had watched me remain calm without remaining silent. It was understanding that love does not require blindness, and peace does not require surrender. My mother once told me that every library contains 2 kinds of silence. There is the peaceful silence of people learning, and there is the dangerous silence of truths no one is permitted to speak. For too long, our family had lived inside the second kind. The ticket changed that. It did not make me rich, it made me free. And now I want to ask you, what would you have done if you found a ticket like that hidden in someone you loved's Bible? Would you have confronted the family immediately, or stayed quiet and followed the records? Tell me in the comments. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that patience is not weakness, documentation is not distrust, and the truth, however carefully buried, has a way of waiting for the right person to find it.